Welcome. Today I'm reviewing the Jackson Hole Ski Resort located in the state of Wyoming. I visited for 3 days at the end of January 2025, 2 weekdays and 1 weekend day outside of any particular holidays, and as you'll see from the videos, the weather was very different each day, starting with a sunny bluebird day and ending with 9 inches of fresh powder overnight, with a snowstorm continuing to move through all day.
A little more challenging than usual. Woo!
Jackson Hole is known for its difficulty and exclusivity, and I was excited to see how it stacked up. I'm sad to say my primary association is the asshole billionaires going here in their separate private jets from the show Silicon Valley, but that is kind of the reputation. Anyway though, we're going to run through a number of different categories and aspects of the mountain before coming to an overall combined rating, and then in the second half of the video I'll break down the various areas of the resort and what to expect with each. First up, ease of access, above average. While the airport was really slow, like over a half hour to get my bags, and took forever to get us out of there on my outbound too, it's only a 33-minute drive from the ski resort base. And if you're staying in the town, it's on the way and only 15 minutes from the airport. And even better, this whole road is nearly completely flat, meaning the chance of bad weather shutting it down is much less than other places. Fun fact, the airport is actually only about 4 miles as the crow flies from the mountain base. You can see it easily from most runs. If they can sort out the private properties in the middle and don't mind a bridge over the river, this drive could theoretically get down to almost nothing in the future. One thing to note when checking the weather forecast is that something about the valley can make the mountain forecast very different from the town itself, so make sure you know which you're checking. The only reason this wasn't a significantly above average rating is that the airport is pretty expensive to fly into, and it's not a hub, which means almost everyone is going to have to connect, and the options can be limited. This leads me to the town. Average. The biggest drawback and most important thing to know, as I alluded to a minute ago, is that it's about 20 minutes drive from the ski resort. It's an easy drive, and there's a lot of shuttles set up, some free, but you're going to need to commute, either for the skiing or for the downtown scene. I stayed in the town mostly because it's way cheaper, but it's also a nice, cozy, small size, one of the best mixes of small town character combined with upscale shopping and restaurants that I've ever seen. Everything is super expensive, but it's still quaint. I don't know if I was lucky or what, but I also happened upon multiple events the town was putting on in the public spaces for free that were really nice. The town square still had some holiday cheer, and on the weekend nights we're putting on a little show in the skating area. Some professional skaters doing their routines to music or singing. And one night was the start of the annual Pedigree Stage Stop Dog Sled Race. They closed a road and turned it into the starting point for this cool event, with people lining the sides of the street in the start of the snowstorm to watch the racers get going. Next up, quantity of runs, below average. Now, keep in mind, I'm comparing to other world-class resorts. This is the 20th largest resort in North America, so it's no slouch. There are technically 72 miles of trails, but I'm dinging them on variety. I get it now that they're serious about this being an advanced mountain, but I'm used to even serious places at least having a few easier greens and blues from high up. This is not the case here. Do not take learners to this mountain and expect them to really get out of the base area. There's like 3 small, basically flat greens, and that is it.
Oh man, maybe I need to get some freaking demo skis. Whew, my all-arounder's not cutting it. This is hard.
What they've got a lot of is steep advanced runs, which brings me to quality of runs. Average. Not because their runs are average, but because the dichotomy between the disappointing easier stuff and the very impressive array of challenging stuff kind of cancel each other out to an average. Not only are there very few green runs, but the blues are steep. Jackson Hole has over 4,000 feet of vertical drop squeezed into a smaller footprint than the bigger resorts, so it's often referenced as having a very steep overall grade throughout. I found there wasn't really anywhere to just cruise. I had to work on most of these runs, make turns, and keep my speed down. Sometimes I just want a big, wide open, groomed blue with a moderate slope to swoop back and forth on, and I am sorry to say I did not find that here. They groom much of the right side of the map, but I found it didn't last long. Something about the volume of people on that steepness wipes out the grooming pretty quickly. Whereas if you're here for the challenge, they got plenty of that, and of all varieties. Steeps, moguls, woods, cliffs, easily accessible from the lifts, extreme terrain you have to hike to, all of it. I'm not a cliff guy myself, but I went on the non-extreme but still high difficulty terrain to check it out. I do love that you can achieve a kind of wilderness, backcountry feel still inside the resort by going to the less visited pieces on either end, but ultimately I don't want to do exclusively that. I missed having some easier runs. I also usually hold off on judging snow quality since I have such a small sample size, but I will say my impression was mixed there. This was well into the season, the very end of January. The mountain had over 200 inches of snow, one of the most in the United States, and yet prior to the powder day, there were some icy spots, and the mountain still wasn't fully open. It's just the extreme stuff that was closed, but man, what does it take to open that stuff if this wasn't enough? Definitely could have been better snow quality. And how about technology? Average. They use RFID badges to scan onto the lifts, and to their credit, this works flawlessly every single time for me from my left arm pocket. The aerial tram to the top takes 100 people up over 4,000 vertical feet, and they've got 2 separate 8-person gondolas. The rest are mostly standard detachable high-speed quads, all functional, but nothing fancy like heated seats or pull-down wind bubbles or anything. They've got an app that seemed functional, but the trail map is kind of sad there and online. Slightly interactive with grooming locations, but mostly just a slightly cut off PDF. It's difficult to distinguish the colors of some runs and whether they're solid or dashed lines. This could use some work. Now let's talk natural beauty. Slightly above average. While there's no defining peak, the Tetons do rise up dramatically and steeply. There's one peak north of the ski area I noticed that's really impressive that you can see from the road or airport. Most of the slopes are facing east and or south, so this is a very good mountain for sun coverage. Most things had it early and kept it for a long time, only getting shadowed late in the day. One neat thing too is that temperature inversions are pretty common at Jackson Hole. This is when the temperature at the top of the mountain is higher than the temperature at the base. This was in effect during my visit, and I was lucky enough to even have it happen on a sunny day. My first day up, it was about 25 degrees warmer at the summit than the base. Now the opposite of natural beauty, human crowds. Slightly below average, as in this was a little bit of a problem, but not much of one. Thursday and Friday were normal weekdays, and I encountered basically no lines, but there were definitely multiple areas of high traffic on the mountain. With the lack of easier runs, as I mentioned earlier, a lot of people are on the easier blues. My last day, though, was not only a Saturday, it was also a powder day with 9 inches of fresh snow and more falling. This brought out the crowds, and for the first time I saw a small line to park, and the aerial tram to the peak had a 30-minute plus wait all day. The rest of the lifts weren't too bad, but there were 5 to 10 minute lines where previously there were none.
Very different vibe at the base today. Not only is it Saturday, but it snowed 9 inches overnight. I was just sitting eating a bagel, listening to the avalanche cannons go off. Some of them you can feel. People are excited.
Often related to crowding, let's move on to food. Above average. There's 10 official places to buy food, with a nice spread over the different areas and up on the mountain. 2 real restaurants, 2 food court style places, a few quick grab and goes, and a couple tiny snack spots. The 2 sit-down restaurants are called Trappers and Pieced. One good thing off the bat, they use open table, so you can make reservations ahead of time. Piste wouldn't take one for a single person, but I was able to just walk right in and sit at the bar without a problem. I ate at both of these and found them overall quite nice, pleasant decor, not too packed, outrageously expensive of course. My $30 Reuben at Piste was much better than my $40 burger at Trappers. Trappers is the fancier of the two, and yet that burger was not good, unfortunately. And the fries were like grab-and-go quality. But maybe my fault for getting a burger when they've got a $400 caviar and champagne experience I could have gone for instead. If you don't want sit-down, your next best options are the two food court-style places. Casper Restaurant is much more traditional burgers and pizza style, much smaller too. I would 100% send you instead to Rendezvous Alpine Kitchen in the same building as Piste at the top of the bridge or gondola. This place impressed me. Burgers too, but also sandwiches and ramen and curry and a salad bar. I was really hungry at the time, but I would go so far as to call the chicken curry I had here delicious. Really jived well with the blue Powerade. On the more unique side, there's a small building at the very top of the resort, next to where the aerial tram lets you off, called Corbet's Cabin. It's got like 4 tables in it, and their thing is they make fresh waffles. I went up there first thing on the first day for breakfast to get my waffle and eat it looking out majestically into the distance. It's not really a special waffle, but it's a fun novelty and it's warm on a cold day. And finally, for our last category, customer service. Above average. I only encountered happy and nice employees. Ski patrol was plentiful. I appreciated that staff helped get skis into the slots of the gondolas. And one time I chatted with a guy for a few minutes about my plan for the day and got a kick out of all of his super stereotypical local lingo. Thankfully, I forgot that I had the GoPro recording on my head, so I got some of it in the video.
So it's going to be softer. That would be a good go-to. Mind it's steep. It's kind of nar-nar. Sure. It's kind of nar-nar, but you can handle it. You're a good boy.
One thing that was missing was a few more staff helping ensure every chair went up full on crowded days. As a single rider, it was easy to see that some of the lift lines merge chaotically and don't end up being efficient. More staff could fix this. I also want to call out that I actually booked my trip nearly last minute through the Jackson Hole website and a promotion that they were running for a discount on airfare. Usually I'd scoff at this, as I'd assume they jack up prices and only offer more expensive hotels and whatnot directly on their website, but I double-checked my options, and not only was the airfare discount real, they actually had a hotel I was looking at for cheaper price than I could get elsewhere. And they assigned you a real person contact to assist with the booking. I was impressed. I got an actual deal like a week and a half before traveling from their official website. So now for the overall score. Average. While Jackson Hole scores highly in many of my categories, ultimately I can't give it higher than that when I felt the quality and quantity of runs were lacking. This one could be polarizing, but just because I can go do expert runs doesn't mean that's all I want out of a mountain, and when I can get both from other places, it would be hard to justify coming here. The most important takeaway I have for you is to make sure you think carefully before bringing newer skiers here. It absolutely lives up to its reputation for difficulty. Now we're going to take a closer look at the various areas of the mountain. There's only one base, the Teton Village. It's at 6,311 feet elevation, so it's high, but not so high that altitude sickness should be an issue off the mountain. It's pretty small, honestly, as these things go, with a few restaurants, lots of lodging, places to rent equipment and buy tickets, and bus drop-off points nicely close to the lifts. 5 lifts start from a relatively small area here, with 2 of them only going a short distance and serving the green beginners area. Eagle's Rest does only that, but note that the Teton Quad is most important as the primary way to get to the Apres Vous Quad off to the right. On weekends, both Teton and Apres Vous open at 8:30 instead of the normal 9 a.m., so they're where you want to go if you're out bright and early. That's what I did on my snowy Saturday. You can also technically get off the Sweetwater Gondola at a mid-station that's still in this beginner area before it really starts gaining vertical. This is the location of the ski school and the Trappers restaurant, and Sweetwater also opens at 8:30 on weekends, but I'd recommend going to Apres Vous, more on that area soon. The actual runs in this beginner area are very flat and short, just one step up from a bunny hill. Recall the difficulty scaling as my primary issue with this mountain, and I was hoping there'd be something more intermediate. Ultimately, this is basically just a pass-through area, not somewhere you're going to be spending time. One bright spot was the terrain park here wasn't too intimidating. Wish I could have climbed on this ropes course thing too.
kiddie park. A little girl went off a jump a second ago that's bigger than the biggest thing I've ever done. Regret. This is regret. Oh, great.
As I just mentioned, the Apres Vous quad can't be accessed directly from the base, but is the critical component to the entire rightmost portion of the resort, and opens first on weekends. A speedy, detachable, high-speed quad, it covers one of the longest distances and verticals, but is also very fast at only a 5-minute ride. As you can see, there's a heavy divide between blues to the left and an expert area to the right. It's important to note that while Jackson Hole really doesn't make it very clear, the dashed lines on the map are supposed to mean double blue or double black, a difficulty slightly higher than the single version. That's especially important because there's a lot of double blues, and I've already said this place skews difficult. As a result, the long single blue Werner is your bread and butter run over there for as close to cruising as you can get. It's not hidden though, so it can be crowded, and while Jackson Hole doesn't groom a lot, this is the start of the area that they focus on. From the left of Apres Vous over to the Casper area we'll talk about soon. You've got Moran, Tiwinot, Hana, and St. John's as the other main arteries down over here. All at least partially double blue difficulty and pretty steep. St. John's is the one furthest to the right and notably is not groomed, so that's where I headed for the start of my powder day. As did everyone else though, so since it opens first, this lift got crowded and had some lines.
Alright, well, I'm off to the right on the map of the Apres Vous lift. There's, I think, 3 blacks and a bowl over here. It's pretty steep. Gonna take it slow. This is not the place where I want to be stuck by myself, so want to check it out. But, you know, what I was looking for over here is the wilderness, and I think that, you know, I haven't been too far over on the far left, but I think the far left and far right of Jackson Hole really have that wilderness feel, because there ain't anybody over here, and this is a pretty large area of the mountain, so that's pretty cool that I'm able to achieve that, even though it's, you know, it's crowded if you go a quarter mile over there.
It was really nice to be away from people if you're comfortable skiing the terrain. Probably best to have a buddy just in case though.
I will say, try not to be like me and lose your ski on a very steep area. I'm currently over my knee in snow here, so I'm going to deal with that. Well, I opted to slide on my butt down 15 feet here, take off the other one for this nice flat spot. I figured that was better than half sliding down the mountain by accident.
This area was hard work, but with the combination of the efficient lift, expert terrain, and some of the best blues, groomed and ungroomed, I'd call Apres Vous my favorite area. As we move left one chair, I want to call your attention to another important aspect of the map. All the runs that have traverse as the last word in their names. Don't be fooled into thinking these are runs, despite their varying difficulty ratings. They are universally 10 to 20 foot wide, mostly flat catwalks, entirely intended to let you easily move around to other areas of the mountain. I appreciate the extensive network, but it can be a little misleading when looking at the map, as there are quite a lot of these. Again, not actual runs. This next chair is the Teton Quad, another high-speed quad, but on the shorter side. I did like Craig's run and wide open as the blue is on either side, and had some fun in the Moran Woods off the side of the Black Kemmerer on the powder day, but there's a smattering of woods between runs all over the mountain, and you can mostly access these blues from the other nearby lifts, so this area is kind of meh. It's fine, just didn't really stand out to me. One more over, we've got the rest of the Sweetwater Gondola from the base, paired with the Casper Quad. The spot where they meet in the middle is where you can find the Casper restaurant, but recall I suggest going to Rendezvous instead for food. For skiing though, Casper is very nice when you aren't looking for expert terrain. It's got easy access to the most varied selection of blues of any lift. And while it's a pretty short chair and short vertical, I found myself taking it a few times in succession. Sundog and Easy Does It are another nice pair of options to go a little easier. While the terrain under Sweetwater is the opposite, consisting of only expert, mostly forested areas. I found myself taking Sweetwater just as a step to get somewhere else, not to ride over and over. Another area over, we've got the bridge or gondola and the small Marmot double chair. While Marmot is kind of a slow relic that I mostly avoided, Bridger is a main artery of the resort. Not only going from the Teton Village right to the top of the middle of the resort, they've also built the primary on-mountain dining at the top of this lift with 3 different food options in that building. Good ones too, these are my recommendation. This area overall might be my second favorite since you've got strong trail variety from the top here. Again, my only complaint is that the main blues, Grovant and Sundance, are both double blues and fairly advanced, not chill, while the single blue Lupine is really just more of a catwalk over to Amphitheater. Amphitheater would actually be a very solid blue run, except for the fact that tons of things filter down into it, meaning it's pretty packed, skied off, and labeled a quote-unquote slow zone by the resort. But Grovant and Sundance do get a little less aggressive lower on the mountain, and they're pretty long runs, even if the bottom parts do also turn into slow zones. You could do these repeatedly, but you are definitely going to have company as you do so. Another chair left is the Thunder Quad, which you pick up at the end of Amphitheater. This covers a relatively small area and would frankly be kind of a strange chair to ride repeatedly unless you were going for the extreme double black terrain right under it. It's mostly to take you far enough up that you can take the Grand or Laramie runs over to the next chair, Sublette. Otherwise, you'd be doing traverses as part of your run to get back to Thunder. Grand and Laramie are worth discussing though. Since it is this vital connection point, you are most likely to end up on one of these, and while they're both double blue, they're pretty different. Grand is up on the ridge and will be windy on weather days. It's fairly narrow and can be intimidating at the top, but I actually preferred it to Laramie. Laramie is next to the Laramie Bowl and looks quite nice. Bigger and wider, maybe a little less steep, but something about the angle of the slope relative to the sun and wind made the snow quality crap the whole time I was there. Much worse than other places, skied off and icy. You'll just want to scope it out. If the snow seems okay, I think it would be quite nice. You can use either run to get to Sublette, the next chair over, the one that was upgraded in 2024 to match the other quads. As I said earlier, these are solid lifts, no fancy heating or whatever, but they move quickly and some have maps on the bars. But Sublette in particular is a powerful lift for your day on the mountain. See on the map how far up it gets you? Almost to the top, and from there you have access to the left to the long double blue Rendezvous trail, or a ton of different expert runs. Rendezvous is a little mixed. It's a real trail, but kind of serves the same purpose as a traverse. It's not super wide, and all the people looking for the easiest way down off the top end up taking it, in addition to everyone coming out of the black area, so it gets crowded. Plus it's weirdly quite steep and a slow zone at the same time. I enjoyed the black area over here a little bit more. The bivouac run is short, but is sometimes groomed, and the woods off to its left were really great. Those are often traveled woods, so there's very clear paths, and if you get in trouble, people nearby to save you. Though they were almost too crowded on the powder day. A lot of people in there. Meanwhile, if you go off to the right off the top of Sublette, you enter a much less frequented area of the mountain. I went here on the storm day, and by the way, the top of Sublette is a mess in a storm. It was later closed due to wind. But going off to the right, you get on the 10 Sleep run. This was really nice. Rarely saw another person. For the part where I was actually on the run, I liked it a lot, but I did end up screwing around a little here off to the side.
There's snow in my jacket. Okay. I'm alive. I can't see my skis, but I'm alive. There.
This is also how you get to some crazy extreme runs. Stop to point the GoPro down, meet your maker as I passed it. This ultimately spits you out close to the start of some of the hikes too.
I don't know if you could see those people way up on the top of the hill straight ahead. I'm standing at the top of what I think is the 10 Sleep Bowl. I went off to the right of the Sublette lift, got stuck in some ridiculously deep, completely untouched snow. It was amazing. Haven't seen another person. This is where, if I wanted to, I could put my skis on my back and start hiking up a mountain. And that is where I draw the line. Those guys can deal with that themselves. These rocks, they're trying to go ski off runs that are basically a cliff like that. Good luck, guys.
Highly recommend this direction off Sublette as few others take it. And because of the diversity of your options here, I think this lift is really crucial to having an efficient day. Another reason why brings us to the aerial tram, the last big lift. This is a 100-person box that you crowd into and go all the way to the top. And of course, everyone wants to go to the top. But I'm here to tell you, I'm not sure it's worth it. I went up there on my first day for a waffle, as I mentioned earlier, and to take in the view. That's worth doing at least once. But skiing-wise, there's only two things you can do up here that you can't do from Sublette. The first is take one of the ultra-extreme terrain runs, like the famous Courbet's Couloir, which 99.99% of us would literally die if we tried. So I'm assuming you aren't going to do that. The other thing is the Black Run Rendezvous Bowl. This is a nice big open bowl area, the biggest at the resort, that's true, but it's not all that different from other bowls on the mountain. And here's the thing, on the powder day, the aerial tram had a 30 to 40 minute wait. This run is not worth that wait, especially when other chairs had only maybe a 5 to 10 minute wait. I would recommend mostly taking Sublette instead. Now, if you are up in that area of the mountain, there's a big swath of black runs down here on the bottom left that you could take instead of going back up Sublette or Thunder. These are interesting, actually, very much like the Saratoga Bowl feel from way over on the right side, maybe a bit easier. I didn't get to see them all. I think I ended up somewhere between Cayenne Gully and Lower Sublette Ridge when I went over here. Very wilderness, lightly traveled, pretty forested, expert area. Again, if you're into that, this could be a good choice. The main downside is you pay a heavy price in time if you take these runs. They don't lead back to the base. Instead, you have to take the Union Pass chair back up a bit to traverse over. It's short but slow.
This is the Union Pass quad chair. It's a quad. That's the best thing I can say about it. Well, there was no line. That too. But yeah, unfortunate you have to take this to get back over to the base area. It's got a map. That's nice.
And then there is no lift to the top of these runs from the base. You're either taking the aerial tram all the way back up or slowly making your way over again via other lifts. It's simply not possible to repeatedly do these in succession. Anyway, that brings us to the end of this Jackson Hole guide and review. I hope this helps others out there decide where to go and know what to do when you get there. If you enjoyed it, please do leave a like, subscribe, comment, whatever. It gives me a lot of joy to know folks get something out of this thing that frankly takes me a long time to make. I do have other ski mountain reviews in the playlist at the end here too. And thanks for watching.